as a psychologist, I go on and on and on about gratitude. And I just want to ask you, what is your personal experience? And I want to ask you about your clinical experiences, what you've seen and witnessed when people or yourself practice gratitude.
Well, you sprung on me at the weekend, Ruth. I want to talk about gratitude. I'm so excited about gratitude. And actually, I was having a horrible weekend and I was feeling anything but grateful. I had these mountains of irritants in my life of which I had little control over. And I wasn't particularly excited about reflecting on this at this point. And I think actually, Ruth, what your request did is prompt me to think about why it's so difficult. If you look at the research, there's lots of good reasons why we should be grateful. It's good for our well-being and it's also good for our physical health as well. But it's not easy. And I think that's because our brains are wired to look for problems because that's what helps us to survive. And so actually what we're doing when we're being grateful is we're broadening the spotlight of our attention to help us to have a more balanced perspective. Now, when you're on that roll of catastrophe, as I was at the weekend, somebody coming in and introducing be grateful didn't go down too well, Ruth.
Oh,
And
I'm an annoying optimist, aren't I?
but I
Oh.
think this is why it's so important because we can be quite trite with gratitude. You know, your life is entirely falling apart. Think about what you're grateful for. You've got that cup of tea. I have to dig really deep sometimes to find that gratitude for a cup of tea, but I do see the purpose. And I think definitely I've seen, well, I know from the literature, and I've seen when I've approached clients at the right time, it is a strategy that can be really helpful. And I think there's a reason, because when we're distressed, we're seeing everything that's wrong. But also, I was really intrigued by what makes gratitude hard. What do you think is a major gratitude blocker, Ruth?
Well, we were talking about this the other day, and something that we agreed on was comparison. So I would say I agree with that. When looking at, oh, they've achieved this, they've got this, done that, succeeded where I failed, um, that I think that can really make gratitude quite challenging. But I would also say, here's, I don't know if this is optimist or realist, you decide. I would also say we can flip that on its head, and through comparison, it can also feed a sense of healthy gratitude as well. I can go into more detail about that, but what do you think about what I'm saying about gratitude? Does that,
Yeah, well,
about
I think
comparison, I mean,
you're
does that, yeah.
definitely. And I'm thinking about one of our colleagues, and she will always say, compare, despair. And I think there's a real truth to that. So if I think about an experience that I had fairly recently, so I had problems with my car, and I was genuinely really grateful that the mechanic could fix it because I do not want to be buying a new car at the moment. And I was waiting to collect my children with some other mothers, and it was a granny that declared, look at this area. You can see how affluent it is. Look at all these wonderful cars. And then I was like, oh. And I went from being grateful that my car was fixed to compare, despair, look at all of their fancy cars and look at mine. And to be honest, Ruth, I'm not a person who does cars. Does it work? Yes, no. What color is it? Super. I have always tried to avoid that kind of tendency that we have to compete with each other. But there it was in my face, and it was like, oh, ouch. What I was grateful for was gone.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I suppose the thing when I'm talking about flipping it on its head, so I have this thing where I say pillows. Pillows are what I'm grateful for. And I know I've had an eye roll or two from you with that before, Georgina. When you feel, what's she going on about pillows for? What's she grateful for her pillows? But when you compare yourself to people who, I mean, this originally came from when I saw a documentary about children living under a railway bridge in India, right next to a rubbish dump, sleeping on dirt floors. And I thought, there, but for the grace of God, go I
Yeah.
in England with my pillows. But actually, there's people in England without pillows. It's not that
Yeah.
uncommon. So when I
Yep.
have a comparison to people less fortunate than myself, that's when I realise I've got pillows. What more do I need?
Yes. So I recently heard about a teacher who was doing funding to get beds for her children because she was saying they couldn't concentrate because they were so tired because they didn't have a bed to sleep in. And you're just like, oh my goodness, what other things that I have that I take for granted because I'm busy comparing myself to multimillionaires
Yeah, you haven't got your
and I'm
Range Rover
feeling
yet.
poor
Yeah,
because I don't have a Range Rover. Yeah. So
yeah.
I think gratitude is really about appreciating the small things. Did your grandmother used to encourage you, Ruth, to count your blessings?
That was my mum. So she
Yeah.
used to say, she used to tell me, so I'd be like, oh, I'm bored, or it's so unfair, or especially as a teenager being all, hormonal and teenagery. And she used to say, name two things you're grateful for. And they used to go like, oh, the sun is shining, and oh, the sun is shining. And she'd be like, fine, that's fine, that's fine. But I'd said two things. And little did she know that what she was doing is wiring my brain because of neuroplasticity. So we have, like you said at the beginning, we have this tendency to look for the danger to keep ourselves safe, which is a healthy thing for us to do. But actually, it stops us looking at what is good, what is wonderful, what is lovely within this world. And so my mum was helping me. She didn't realize she was a neuroscientist, helping me wire my brain to look for and appreciate what's good in the world. And it does. Like I say, I'm an annoying optimist. I'm getting more realistic in my old age. I've had a few knocks to knock that out of me a bit. But I will look for silver linings, and I will look for what is good, even in the really trying and difficult stuff of life.
Well, we're talking about an age-old wisdom here, aren't we? There's nothing new in the zoo. So we've got all our gratitude research now, but actually generations before us understood this. If we can find the silver lining. So I recently heard this story about a chap who was at the airport and something had gone wrong with his paperwork. And this was going to mean that he was going to have to go in a big long queue to sort it all out. And you can imagine how his heart would have sunk in that moment. And he was getting on in years, so standing up in the queue was not going to be easy for him. But actually, somebody who worked there had compassion on him and bought him and his wife some chairs, which he was enormously grateful for. And then somebody came along and helped get the paperwork done. So actually, his story went from being one of drudgery, isn't it awful, and how the airport let me down or somebody let me down, to actually gratitude to the people who helped him. And it was really interesting that this was a man of faith, actually, and so he was really well practiced at kind of finding the good, finding the gold, finding God in the moments. And so in my life, when perhaps a little less dramatically, you're stuck in traffic and it's really frustrating because you need to get to work because you've got lots to get done before your appointment. And actually, is there a blessing there? Was I the fortunate one who avoided the accident that day? Can I actually take the time to be peaceful in my car rather than work myself up into a lather about the injustice I'm facing in being slowed down. Because I think when we're stressed, we're moving so quickly, aren't we? Internally, we're carrying all that tension. Our minds are focused on all these threats. It's really difficult.
So if you do take the exact same situation of you in your car getting stressed, this is so unfair. It's the whole interpretation thing, isn't it? The CBT sort of bedrock of how we interpret events. So if you're there interpreting, this is so unfair, or you interpret it as, well, I don't know what's gone on up ahead. There's absolutely nothing I can do about it. I'm just going to enjoy this moment of peace. I don't, you wouldn't have your 3 children running around screaming at you at that point, Georgina. Enjoy the peace, And if you do that, your whole system, your whole body is designed to respond in a different way. So you will release all the oxytocin, the feel-good chemicals, and you will your body will respond differently to if you're in that state of stress when you've got the adrenaline and the cortisol going round.
So, if you asked me on Saturday morning if I would be responding enthusiastically to a discussion on gratitude, I would have said, "Oh, leave me alone."
Thanks for
And
that.
I have been working hard on it, because actually it's when we're in the thick of it that it's most important. And I think what was making it particularly challenging is I had 2 significant people in my life, both over the weekend, doing their very best to not demonstrate a particularly great attitude towards any of the challenges that they were encountering, which by default was making it my problem. And actually, therefore, how do we hold on to what we're grateful for in spite of all the storms around us, and try our very best to maintain our own peace, even when people might be challenging that?
I think you make a really important point there, because what gratitude isn't doing is saying, look for the diamonds and the holidays in the Maldives. What gratitude is inviting you to do is, in spite of the storms around you, think about, what am I grateful for within this, as opposed to trying to change the circumstances into helping you be grateful for them.
So, Ruth, I'm grateful for our followers. And I have been, you laugh, because we have been really working hard to get ourselves out of the, I don't know where we are in the algorithm, somewhere in the dirt, Ruth, somewhere invisible. And I've been really working hard to try and increase our visibility, which kind of means any poor soul that friends me on, you don't friend on LinkedIn, do you? Whatever you do on LinkedIn, you connect. I'm asking them to make friends with us and follow us on YouTube. And do you know, some people do. And honestly, I'm like, thank you. I'm so grateful for those strangers who are supporting us. So, for those of you who are watching, and if you've made it to this point now, we would like to give you a gratitude challenge. And that is to really look at what the research will say. If you can find 3 things that you're grateful for each day, that will build up to or have a really positive impact on your mental health. Can you scour your day and find 3 things that you're grateful for? So, do you know what I'm grateful for? I'm grateful for that I got this picture up finally, because you've been going on and on about it. And finally, I got the right sticky stuff, so I don't have to knock a hole in the wall and put it on. So
Yeah.
I've got 1 so far.
Okay. So absolutely, there's something about, how do you apply this to life? So how do you do it? And there's something about being intentional, and it doesn't have to be something new every day. So every morning when I wake up, I'm thankful for my pillows, and I say a little thank you for my pillows, because I'm grateful for them. So kind of start the day with gratitude. And yes, research shows 3 things a day. And so, yeah, what about I invite anybody who's listening. So that's your dad, my mum, probably get to the end of this. So our two followers, anyone who listens to the end. The invite is try for 7 days to start your day with 3 gratitudes, or somewhere in your day, get 3 gratitudes in, and just see if you notice any difference over the week. Helping minds thrive. That's what we want to do, isn't it, Georgina?